Stop resisting. You are under arrest.
Please, I can't breathe. Get on the ground.
You're under arrest.
Don't resist.
A routine traffic stop spirals into horror when Alana Hayes, a black woman quietly driving home, is brutalized by 3 white police officers who choke her unconscious for resisting, unaware she is the newly appointed director of the FBI. What begins as a night of humiliation and near death explodes into national outrage when shaky bystander footage spreads online, igniting protests and exposing systemic racism. Intense interrogations and courtroom battles. Alana refuses silence, forcing the world to see her truth as the officers scramble to cover their tracks and cling to power. Betrayal comes from within the justice system. Allies hesitate and enemies smear her name, but Alana's resilience burns brighter than their hate. With her attorney by her side, she endures cross-examinations that feel like second assaults, until the tide shifts, poetic justice crashing down on the abusers as their badges are stripped. Their freedom revoked and their legacy reduced to shame. Rising from survivor to symbol, Alana claims her voice in a powerful public reckoning, reminding the world that resilience is not enough. We must demand change. This is not just a story of racism and abuse of power, but of resistance, exposure, and the downfall of those who thought themselves untouchable. The night was quiet, the kind of silence that presses against glass. Dr. Alana Hayes guided her black sedan down the nearly empty street, one hand steady on the wheel. The dashboard clock glowed 11:42 p.m. She exhaled, exhaustion settling into her bones after another endless day. Headlights flared in her rearview mirror. Too close. A second later, red and blue lights ignited. She sighed, already pulling toward the curb. License and registration. The officer's tone was clipped, his jaw tight. He leaned slightly into her window, flashlight beam sweeping across her face. Alana lifted her wallet calmly. Of course, officer. He squinted at her ID, lingering. Alana Hayes. Dr. Hayes? Yes, his lips twitched. Doctor of what? Nail design? A small silence spread. Alana didn't answer the insult. She just handed over the registration. The second officer circled her car, his light cutting across the back seat. You know why we pulled you over? The first one asked. No, Alana said simply. You failed to signal before merging. Her brow arched slightly. I did signal. The officer's smile was thin. You arguing with me? I'm stating the truth, a beat. The officer leaned back, exchanging a look with his partner. The second officer came around to her side. Step out of the vehicle. Alana's voice stayed calm. May I ask why? You may not. Step out. Her eyes flicked between them. Am I being detained? Don't play lawyer, the first officer snapped. Step out before we drag you out. Silence stretched. The kind that dared her to resist. Alana slowly unbuckled her seatbelt. Understood. She stepped onto the cold pavement. The officers loomed, their flashlights bright against her tailored blazer. Where you coming from? Work. Doing what? I told you. I'm Dr. Hayes. Doctor of Attitude, maybe. The second officer chuckled. The first smirked. Funny how every one of you's got some fancy story. Alana kept her eyes level, her face unreadable. Hands on the hood, the first officer ordered. For what reason? The smirk widened. Because I said so. Her jaw clenched. She placed her hands on the hood. The metal was cold under her palms. You live around here? Yes. You don't look like you belong around here, Alana's voice was even. I wasn't aware belonging had a look. The second officer snorted. Hear that? She's got jokes. The first leaned closer. You think this is funny? You resisting right now? No, Alana said. I'm complying. But her calmness only unsettled them more. They wanted fear. They wanted apology. Instead, she gave them silence. The radios crackled. Another patrol unit was en route. The first officer pressed harder. You hiding something? Drugs, weapon? No. Then why you so calm, huh? People like you usually panic. Alana finally turned her head slightly. Maybe because I know my rights. The second officer muttered. Yeah, she's one of those. The first officer's grin turned sharp. We'll see about that. The roadside was darker now. The patrol car lights pulsing red and blue across empty windows and silent porches. Alana stood with her palms flat against the hood, her breath misting faintly in the cool night. The first officer's voice cut through the hum of the engine. "Keep your hands where we can see them." "They're right here," Alana said. "Don't get smart." The second officer prowled around her, circling like a predator sizing prey. "You got any weapons on you?" "No. You sure?" "We'll find out quick." Her voice stayed even. "I'm sure." The first officer leaned closer. "What's in your purse?" "Documents." "Work materials," he barked a laugh. "Work materials? What kind of work?" Alana didn't flinch. "Government." That word landed wrong. Both men stiffened slightly. "Government, huh? What are you, some secretary?" "I'm Dr. Hayes. Doctor of what?" The second one pressed, "Law." The first officer scoffed. "Yeah, right. And I'm the president." A third patrol car pulled up, tires crunching gravel. Another officer climbed out, younger, heavier set, chewing gum. "What we got?" he asked, strolling over. "Non-compliant," the first answered. "Gave us attitude. Claims she's some doctor." The newcomer's eyes scanned Alana slowly, dismissively. "Figures. They all got some title when the cuffs come out." Alana spoke carefully. "I've complied with every order you've given." Wrong tone, the third officer cut in. "You think you're better than us?" "No. You sound like you do." Her silence afterward only deepened their irritation. The second officer stepped closer. "Let's see that ID again." Alana turned slightly. "It's in your partner's hand. Don't get slick. I gave it to him already." The first officer waved the license in the air. "Yeah, I got it. Says she's Dr. Alana Hayes. Address checks out." The third officer sneered. "Fake IDs are a thing, you know." "That is not fake," Alana said. The first officer grinned. "How would we know? You people always gotta hustle." Alana's jaw tightened. The third officer gestured. "Pat her down." Alana turned her head. "Is that necessary? You resisting?" "No." "Then don't talk." The second officer's hands ran rough along her arms, down her sides to her ankles. He chuckled. "Clean, not even pepper spray. Guess she's harmless after all." The first smirked. "Harmless until she runs her mouth." Alana stayed motionless, the hood cold beneath her palms. The younger officer leaned against the patrol car, chewing his gum louder. "You live in this neighborhood?" "Yes." "You sure? Houses around here don't usually got your kind." Alana inhaled through her nose. "I live here." The first officer tilted his head. "Funny thing, your car's registered to the same address. Guess you've got the paperwork down at least." Alana said nothing. "See that?" the second muttered. "That's guilt right there, silence." The gum chewer stepped forward suddenly. "Turn around." "For what purpose?" He smirked. "Because I told you." Alana's voice was low. "Am I under arrest?" "Not yet." "Then why?" "Turn around." She turned slowly. The first officer whispered something to the second, too quiet for her to catch. Both chuckled. Then the gum chewer's hand clamped down on her wrist. Alana stiffened. "I'm not resisting." "Sure you're not." He yanked her arm behind her. The second officer grabbed the other wrist. "Stop resisting!" he shouted. "I am not resisting." Alana's voice cracked louder now, cutting through the night, but their voices grew louder too, overlapping hers. "Quit fighting. Hands behind your back. Stop resisting." Neighbors' lights flicked on. Curtains shifted, Alana gasped. "You're hurting me." The first officer leaned close to her ear. "Then stop resisting." "I'm not." The gum chewer smirked. Funny how they all say that. Her knees buckled slightly under the pressure. The second officer hissed, "Should we take her down?" The first nodded. "Do it. She wants to play tough. We'll show her tough." The gum chewer shoved harder on her arm, twisting. Alana's cry pierced the night, and then the command, "Get her on the ground." The chapter ended with her being forced forward, wrists caught in a vice, their shouts drowning out her truth. The night air snapped cold against Alana's skin as the three officers forced her downward. Her cheek struck the hood, metal vibrating beneath her skull. "Stop resisting." Her voice broke under the pressure. "I'm not resisting." "Shut up!" The gum chewer barked. The second officer shoved harder. "On the ground now?" "I haven't done anything." "Exactly why you should cooperate," the first hissed. Her knees scraped pavement as they dragged her off the car. The gravel cut into her tights. A porch light clicked on across the street. A neighbor's voice wavered. "What's going on?" "Back inside." The first officer roared. "Police business." Alana's chest heaved. Please. The gum chewer's hand snaked around her neck. The grip tightened. Air vanished. Don't. Alana rasped. Hold still, he snarled. Her eyes widened, panic finally breaking through her composure. I can't breathe. Stop faking. The second officer pressed her shoulders down. She's strong, watch it. She's resisting, the gum chewer growled, tightening his choke. I'm not. Alana's words came out broken, shredded. The narration cut in, heavy. Another black body. Another night. Another routine stop. The script always the same. Her hands clawed instinctively at the air, not his arms. She knew better. Clawing made them scream. Assault. She fought to stay still even as her lungs burned. The first officer leaned close. Thought you were smart? Look at you now. Alana's voice was barely a whisper. Please. From a second-floor window, a phone camera glinted in the dark. Someone was recording. Yo, she can't breathe. A voice from across the street shouted. The gum chewer snarled back. Mind your business. The second officer barked, clear the sidewalk. But the grip never loosened, Alana's chest convulsed. The sound of choking filled the night. The first officer muttered, almost done. Just cuff her. I can't cuff her if she keeps twisting. The second snapped. I'm not. Her words cut off as the choke deepened. Her body went slack for a second. The grip didn't let go. Is she? The second officer hesitated. She's faking, the gum chewer insisted. They all do this. The first officer nodded quickly. Exactly. Play dead, get sympathy. Don't fall for it, Alana's vision tunneled. The street lamps blurred into stars. Her body thudded onto the pavement, cheek grinding into gravel. Get her hands. Damn it, she's not moving. Good, less trouble. The gum chewer leaned his weight onto her back. See? Resistance over. Alana's breath rattled, shallow, fragile. Her lips formed soundless words. A neighbor's voice trembled. I'm recording this. All of it. The first officer snapped his head up. Turn that off. Hell no! The gum chewer shouted. Interfering with an investigation is a crime. She can't breathe. She's fine. But her body lay still. The narration pierced again. Procedure becomes excuse. Fear becomes weapon. Control becomes violence. And silence. Silence becomes deadly. The second officer crouched near her face.
Hey!
You awake? No answer. Man, did you kill her? She's faking, the gum chewer repeated, though his voice faltered. The first officer swore under his breath. Get her up. But Alana's body didn't rise. Her final sound before darkness swallowed her was a broken gasp. Thin as thread, then nothing. The street was quiet, except for the flashing lights and the faint whir of recording phones. And the weight of a truth too familiar. Alana lay still, face pressed into the pavement, gravel biting into her cheek. Her chest rose barely, faint and uneven. The gum chewer adjusted his stance, breath loud. She's fine. Just faking. The second officer crouched low, uncertainty leaking into his voice. Man, she hasn't moved in like a minute. She's breathing, the first officer snapped. I saw her chest. No, I didn't, the second whispered. You weren't looking. From across the street, a woman shouted. She's not moving. Let her breathe. The gum chewer's jaw tightened. Shut up and go inside. I'm calling 911. You don't need to. We are 911. Murmurs rippled through the gathering crowd. More porch lights blinked on, more phones glowed in the dark. Check her pulse, the second officer muttered. She doesn't need a pulse check. You sure about that? She's breathing. The gum chewer leaned down, pressing harder on her back. See? I feel movement. Alana's lips parted faintly, but no words came. Sirens wailed faint in the distance. A paramedic van approached. The first officer cursed. Great, someone called EMS. Good, the second muttered. She might need it. The gum chewer glared at him. You trying to get us written up? We control this scene, got it? The younger one hesitated. Yeah. The ambulance pulled up. 2 paramedics jumped out, red bags slung over their shoulders. What happened? One asked, jogging over. Stand back, the first officer barked. We'll let you know when it's safe. The paramedic frowned. She looks unconscious. We need to. Scene isn't secure, the gum chewer interrupted. The crowd booed, voices rising. Let them help her. She's dying. Back off, cops. Alana's breath rattled weakly. The second officer muttered. She doesn't look good. She's fine, the gum chewer said. but his voice cracked. The paramedic's tone sharpened. If you delay treatment and she dies, that's on you. She's a suspect. We'll decide when you get access. She's a patient, and she needs oxygen. Alana's body jerked faintly, a broken gasp forcing its way out. The paramedic knelt despite the barrier of uniforms. I heard that. She's still in respiratory distress. Back off, the first officer barked. You don't have the authority to stop me from saving her life? The gum chewer's eyes narrowed. Want to be arrested for obstruction? For trying to keep someone alive? The crowd roared louder, voices blending. Let them help. She's not resisting, she's unconscious. Cops are gonna kill her. Phones angled closer. Every word was captured. The second officer finally spoke up, voice low but firm. We gotta let them in. She's not faking. The first officer shot him a glare. Shut your mouth, the paramedic shoved forward. Move, the gum chewer blocked him. Touch her and you'll regret it. Alana's chest gave a shallow rise, then dropped. Her lips parted. A faint rasp escaped. Help. The word was tiny, but it cut through everything. The paramedic seized on it. You hear that? She's conscious. I'm not waiting. He pushed past, kneeling by her head. The gum chewer growled. You're overstepping. And you're suffocating her. The paramedic's gloved fingers pressed to Alana's throat. She's tachycardic, breathing shallow. Get me the bag valve mask. His partner rushed with equipment. Back off, the first officer snapped. No, the paramedic said flatly. She'll die if we wait another minute. Narration cut in, sharp. When silence means death, sometimes one voice has to cut through the noise. Tonight that voice wasn't hers. The paramedic lifted Alana's chin gently, sliding an oxygen mask over her face. She gasped faintly, a fragile sound that made the crowd erupt. She's alive, someone shouted. The gum chewer cursed under his breath, stepping back. The second officer muttered, We're screwed. No, the first officer said quickly. We'll write it up clean. She resisted, we restrained, she collapsed. Done. The gum chewer nodded. Exactly. Textbook. But their eyes darted to the crowd of phones recording every second. The narration lingered. Procedure bends the story. Reports erase the screams. But cameras don't forget. As the paramedics worked, Alana's eyes fluttered open, weak and dazed. The crowd gasped, and the officers froze. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Alana's eyelids peeled open slowly, her throat raw, chest heavy with each breath. She lay in a narrow hospital bed, a blood pressure cuff squeezing her arm. The hiss of an oxygen tube brushed her ear. But it wasn't the machines she noticed first. It was the uniforms. 2 officers stood at the door. Another sat in a chair by the bed, his boot tapping against the floor. She's awake, the sitting officer muttered. The first officer leaned in. Welcome back. Alana's lips parted. Her voice came out hoarse. Where am I? County General. You gave us a scare out there. Her brow furrowed weakly. A scare? You went limp on us, the gum chewer smirked. Lucky we caught you before you cracked your head open. Alana's eyes sharpened faintly. That's not what happened. The first officer leaned closer. That's what we wrote down. The younger officer at the door added, Report says you resisted arrest, became combative, and then collapsed. Paramedics revived you. Standard procedure. Alana stared at him. Her voice steadied even if her body trembled. That's a lie. Careful, the gum chewer said, wagging a finger. False accusations against law enforcement can land you in bigger trouble than you already got. She exhaled slowly, saying nothing. The narration cut in. Silence can be shield. Silence can be strategy. Sometimes silence is the only weapon left. The first officer smirked. So let's get this straight. You failed to comply. We restrained you, and then... I complied, Alana whispered. His grin sharpened. Not according to us. The gum chewer chuckled. And guess whose word the court's gonna believe? The door creaked open. A nurse peeked in, voice firm. She needs rest. You can't crowd her like this. The first officer flashed his badge. We're staying until she's cleared for discharge. The nurse frowned. She's a patient, not a prisoner. Not anymore. She's both. Alana closed her eyes briefly, steadying herself. The gum chewer leaned closer to her bed. You want some advice? Don't fight this. Take the charge, plead down, go home in a month, no one will care. Her gaze lifted, sharp despite the weakness in her body. You're wrong. People will care. He chuckled. Lady, we do this every night. Trust me. Nobody cares. The younger officer shifted uneasily at the door. His voice was low. Maybe we should let her talk to a lawyer. The first officer shot him a look. She doesn't need one. Alana's voice cut through. Yes, I do. The gum chewer sneered. Lawyers just make things messy. That's the point, Alana whispered. Minutes dragged like hours. The officers talked in low tones by the door, confident she couldn't hear. Body cam's gonna back us, right? They'll never release the footage. Exactly. We're solid. Alana's throat burned, but she stayed silent, her eyes closed, listening. Narration slid in. They thought they had the script. They always do. But scripts unravel when the wrong actor is cast. A knock at the door. It swung open. A woman in a tailored gray suit stepped in, leather briefcase in hand. Her tone was cool, clipped. I'm here for Dr. Alana Hayes. The officers stiffened. Who are you? The first officer demanded. Her attorney, the woman said calmly. Move. The gum chewer barked. She doesn't need one. The attorney's eyes narrowed. Every patient has the right to counsel. Or are you planning to arrest hospital staff next? Alana's lips curved faintly. Relief flickered in her tired eyes. The attorney stepped to her bedside, speaking low. Dr. Hayes, I'm here. Don't say another word to them. Alana nodded weakly. The first officer growled. We're not done here. Yes, you are, the attorney snapped. You've done enough, the gum chewer muttered under his breath as they filed toward the hallway. This is gonna blow back on her, not us. But his voice didn't carry the same confidence as before. The attorney leaned close once the room cleared. Her tone dropped to a whisper. Do you want me to tell them who you are? Alana's tired eyes met hers. Not yet. Why? Because they think I'm powerless. And you want them to? Alana's faint smile held both pain and steel. For now. The narration cut in. Final. The system feeds on silence. But sometimes silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's the sound of a storm gathering strength. The hospital room was quiet except for the monitor's steady beep. Alana sat propped against the pillows, oxygen tube still in place, attorney standing firm at her side. The door burst open. The sergeant entered, older, thick-necked, badge gleaming under fluorescent light. 3 officers trailed behind him, including the gum chewer and the first officer. He wasted no time. Dr. Hayes, I'm Sergeant Miller. We need to clear up a few things. Her attorney stepped forward. She won't be answering your questions. Miller's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? She's invoking her rights. He gave a cold smile. Rights don't mean much when you resist arrest. Alana's gaze rose slowly to meet his. Her silence stretched. The gum chewer broke it first, smirking. You should have seen her, Sarge. Total attitude. Thought she was smarter than us. Then boom, down she goes. The first officer added, We had no choice. She refused commands. Miller nodded, scribbling on a notepad. Combative, non-compliant. Got it. The attorney folded her arms. That's not what happened, and you know it. Miller's smile thinned. Lady, I've been doing this 30 years. I know how these things go. She resisted. You'll fight it. Case closed. Alana finally spoke, her voice low but sharp. Case closed? That's how you bury people? Miller turned his head toward her. That's how we survive the paperwork. The gum chewer chuckled. Truth hurts. The attorney opened her briefcase slowly, sliding out a folder. Sergeant Miller, do you know who my client is? Miller's jaw tightened. Yeah, some community activist who thinks she's untouchable. The attorney's lips curved. Wrong. She placed a document on the tray table, sliding it toward him. The FBI seal gleamed under the light. Miller frowned. What's this? Her credentials. The gum chewer leaned closer, squinting. Wait, what? The attorney's voice was steady. Dr. Alana Hayes is the current director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Silence, the first officer blinked. You're joking. No, the attorney said flatly. Check the seal. Check the signature. Check the appointment date. She is the highest law enforcement officer in the country. The gum chewer's smirk collapsed. His mouth opened, then shut again. Miller's face drained of color. That's not possible. Alana's voice cut through. It's very possible, because it's true. The younger officer at the back swallowed hard. Director? Miller snapped at him. Shut up. But his voice wavered. Alana sat taller, despite the ache in her chest. You dragged me out of my car. You choked me unconscious, and the whole time you assumed I was nothing. That's your mistake. Not mine, the gum chewer stammered. We didn't know that I was FBI. Her tone sharpened. Or that I was human. He flinched. The attorney slid another paper across. Every second of last night is recorded. By neighbors, by phones, and yes, by body cams you think will never see daylight. But they will, Miller clenched his fists. We can spin this. She resisted. We followed protocol. Alana's eyes burned into him. Protocol doesn't leave bruises on someone's neck. The gum chewer muttered, We're finished. Miller shot him a glare. No, we'll fight this. Deny, double down, bury the footage. The system will back us. The narration pierced in. The system protects itself until the cracks are too wide, the light too blinding. Denial is its language, fear, its heartbeat. The attorney's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then smiled faintly. Too late for burying, Sergeant. The videos are already online. Miller's face blanched. What? The gum chewer's eyes widened. Online already? Yes, she said. Millions of views. Hashtags trending. News trucks circling this very hospital. The first officer swore under his breath. Alana's voice was ice. Every shout of stop resisting, every second of me gasping for air, it's all out there. And the nation is watching. The younger officer spoke again, voice shaky. We're screwed, Miller barked. Quiet. But his hands trembled as he shoved the folder back. He muttered to himself. Internal affairs is going to eat us alive. Alana leaned forward slightly, her voice steady now. You tried to write my story for me. But you forgot. I've been writing yours the whole time. The gum chewer whispered, we didn't know. Her stare froze him. That ignorance is exactly why you're done. The narration cut in, final. Power protects power, until it doesn't. The same shield they hid behind now turned to glass, cracking under the weight of truth. And the first shards were already falling. By dawn, the hospital was surrounded. Satellite trucks lined the curb. Reporters swarmed like bees at every door. Microphones raised, cameras glowing red. Inside, the officers huddled in a side hallway. This is insane, the gum chewer muttered, peeking through a narrow window at the flashing lights. They're everywhere. The first officer rubbed his temples. They don't even know the whole story. The younger officer whispered they saw enough. A nurse passing by hissed under her breath. Good, let them. The officers froze. She didn't look back. Outside the front doors, a CNN correspondent spoke live. Breaking this morning, viral footage of last night's brutal arrest shows officers choking a woman unconscious during what appears to be a traffic stop. The woman has now been identified as Dr. Alana Hayes, director of the FBI. The reporter's voice dropped lower. Yes, you heard correctly. The director of the FBI. Gasps rippled through the watching crowd. Back inside, Sergeant Miller stormed into the waiting area, his phone pressed tight to his ear. Don't give me that, he barked. I don't care what's trending, and control the narrative. He slammed the phone shut, sweat beading at his temples. The gum chewer asked, well, what's the plan? Miller snapped, deny everything. Say she resisted. Say the video doesn't tell the full story. Same playbook as always. The younger officer muttered, that playbook's dead. Miller glared, not if we run it hard enough. In Alana's room, the attorney scrolled through her phone, showing her the screen. 2 million views already. Hashtags are choked by cops. Our director Hayes, our justice for Alana. Alana exhaled slowly. They finally see. Her voice was calm, but her eyes shone with fire. By noon, the hospital press conference began. Reporters crammed into the lobby, microphones battling for position. A city official stepped to the podium, flanked by Miller and his officers. Good afternoon. We are aware of the unfortunate incident involving Dr. Hayes. The officers acted in accordance with protocol. A reporter cut in sharply. Protocol? Choking a woman unconscious is protocol? The official hesitated. The investigation is ongoing. Another reporter shouted, Did you know she was the FBI director when you attacked her? Flashbulbs erupted. The gum chewer's jaw twitched. Miller leaned into the mic. Our officers had no knowledge of her identity at the time. They responded to a combative suspect. The crowd erupted in shouts. Combative? She was choking. Why say stop resisting when she was already pinned? Is that your training, and to kill first and justify later? The narration slid in sharp. Words once used to control now turned on their masters. The script they had rehearsed for years no longer worked under the unblinking eye of the world. From her hospital bed, Alana watched the press conference on TV. She whispered, Listen to them choke on their lies. The attorney nodded. Every word digs them deeper. In the crowd outside, protesters gathered. Signs lifted high. Stop resisting lies. Choked for existing. Justice for Alana. Chants rose, loud, relentless. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Inside, Miller's face grew redder as the press fired questions like bullets. Why did you say she was resisting when the footage shows otherwise? Why did 3 men need to restrain one unarmed woman? Would this have happened if she were white? Miller slammed his hand on the podium. Enough. You people don't understand what it's like out there. The words echoed. Camera zoomed in, a reporter smirked. Sounds like you don't either. The narration cut in again. The court of public opinion doesn't wait for trials. It doesn't need evidence beyond the scars it sees. And once it passes judgment, no uniform, no badge, no rank can shield you. The gum chewer whispered to the first officer, We're finished, man. He just buried us. The first officer said nothing. His silence was heavier than denial. By evening, the president himself released a statement. The treatment of Director Hayes is unacceptable. There will be a full federal investigation. No one is above the law, including those sworn to enforce it. The nation erupted. Social media feeds flooded with outrage, think pieces, late-night hosts mocking the officers' excuses. And still outside the hospital, the chants didn't stop. Justice for Alana. Justice for Alana. In her room, Alana listened, tears pricking her eyes. The attorney placed a hand on her arm. They're not just chanting for you. They're chanting for everyone before you, everyone who never got this moment. Alana closed her eyes, whispering, Then we can't waste it. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Miller's phone buzzed again. He answered, voice low. Yes? What, fired? Suspended. His face drained. You can't, I've served 30 years, he froze. Then slowly lowered the phone. The gum chewer whispered. What happened? Miller swallowed hard. Internal affairs just pulled our badges. Narration struck like a hammer. The shield that once made them untouchable now became their noose. And the people they dismissed as powerless were the ones tightening the rope. The precinct smelled of coffee gone cold and fear. Officers gathered in small clusters whispering, their eyes flicking to the suspended men as they entered. The gum chewer walked stiff, jaw tight. The first officer avoided every gaze. Miller's bulk carried no authority now, only dread. One voice broke the silence. You idiots ruined everything. It came from Lieutenant Harris, a wiry man with sharp eyes. Do you know what kind of storm you've brought on us? The director of the FBI? Miller snapped. She resisted. Shut up, Harris cut in. You've been spewing that line for years. This time, no one's buying it. In the Internal Affairs office, files and hard drives stacked high. Agents scrolled through body cam footage, transcripts, statements. One investigator muttered, text messages already leaked. They were bragging in the group chat. Another shook her head. Arrogance is always the first crack in the wall. Back in the locker room, whispers turned louder. She was unarmed. Whole thing's on tape. IA's crawling all over us. The gum chewer exploded. We followed protocol. Another officer shot back. No, you followed habit. You thought she was nobody. Now she's somebody and we're all paying the price. The narration cut in. The blue wall had always stood tall, shielding them from accountability. But walls collapse from within, not from without. And fear is the best hammer. Miller stormed into the captain's office. You're gonna let them hang us out to dry? The captain leaned back, face carved from stone. You hung yourselves. We need unity. Back the badge, the captain's gaze hardened. Back the badge? You nearly strangled the director of the FBI on camera. Do you know how many calls I've had today? DOJ, the mayor, the governor. Nobody's backing you now. Miller's voice cracked. We're family. Family doesn't burn the house down. In the hallway, the younger officer sat alone, head in his hands. Another colleague approached cautiously. You should flip. He looked up. What? Flip, testify, cut a deal with IA before Miller drags you down with him. Everyone's talking about it. The younger officer swallowed hard. They'll call me a traitor. The colleague shrugged. Better a traitor than unemployed. Or in prison. Inside the interrogation room, the gum chewer faced 2 IA agents. One leaned forward. You shouted stop resisting 4 times when she wasn't moving. Why? He stammered. That's what we're trained to say. The agent smirked. Trained to cover yourselves, you mean? The gum chewer shifted in his seat, sweat trickling down his neck. Look, I was following Miller's lead. The other agent raised an eyebrow. So you're saying Miller ordered the chokehold? The gum chewer hesitated, then nodded barely. The wall cracked wider. Back at the hospital, Alana watched the evening news. Clips rolled of officers leaving IA interviews, heads down, lips tight. The attorney smiled. They're turning on each other. Alana's voice was soft, steady. The only loyalty they ever had was to power. Without it, they'll eat themselves alive. In the precinct cafeteria, the first officer pushed away his untouched tray. This is hopeless, he muttered. The gum chewer leaned in. We stick together, we survive. The younger officer shook his head. Survival means cutting ties. IA's already got you both nailed. I'm not going down with you. Miller slammed his fist on the table. You think flipping will save you? They'll crucify us all. The younger officer stood, voice trembling but firm. No, they'll crucify you. I'm done. He walked away. The silence he left behind was heavier than chains. Narration struck. The wall was built on silence. But silence cracks when survival speaks louder than loyalty. And once one voice breaks, the echoes cannot be stopped. Later that night, Harris entered the interrogation room where Miller sat alone. They're all talking, Harris said. Your own men. Pointing at you, Miller sneered. Cowards. No, Harris replied coldly. Survivors. You're the dead weight they're cutting loose. Miller's jaw tightened. They wouldn't dare. They already have. Harris slid a folder across the table. Inside, transcripts, statements, signatures. His men had flipped. Miller's breath hitched. For the first time, his voice broke. They betrayed me. Harris leaned close. No. You betrayed yourself the moment you thought that badge made you God. At the hospital, Alana whispered to herself as the chants outside roared louder. The wall is falling. Her attorney nodded. Brick by brick. And when it's gone, there'll be nowhere left for them to hide. Narration closed in. The blue wall wasn't shattered by outrage, nor by politics, nor even by truth. It was shattered by fear, the fear of sinking ships dragging everyone with them. And in the scramble to survive, the shield became a blade, cutting its own bearers to pieces. The federal courthouse was overflowing. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones thrust like weapons. Protesters filled the sidewalks, signs lifted high. Justice for Alana. No more excuses. The system must answer. Inside, the officers sat at the defense table, pale under the fluorescent lights. Miller tugged at his collar, sweat soaking through his shirt. The gum chewer's usual smirk was gone, replaced by trembling lips. The first officer stared at the floor. The judge entered, gavel striking. Court is now in session, every sound in the room stilled. The prosecutor rose. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Body camera footage, witness recordings, and their own statements prove beyond doubt that the defendants used excessive force against an unarmed citizen. That citizen happened to be the director of the FBI. But let the record show. Her title doesn't change the brutality she suffered. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Miller leaned toward his lawyer, whispering harshly, We can still fight this. The lawyer shook his head. Fight with what? You've been abandoned. Even your union won't cover you now, the gum chewer hissed. This is a witch hunt. The prosecutor turned, addressing the jury. They shouted stop resisting as she gasped for air. They forced her down until she lost consciousness. Their story crumbles under its own lies. The narration cut in. For years, the phrase "stop resisting" had been their shield, their script, their alibi. But now it echoed back like a curse, evidence of cruelty, not control. At the witness stand, Alana's attorney questioned a bystander who filmed the arrest. "What did you see?" The man's voice trembled but was clear. She wasn't resisting. She was begging them to stop. "They wouldn't. I thought they were going to kill her." The defense attorney objected. "Speculation." The judge shook his head. "Overruled. The witness may continue," the man swallowed. "I filmed because I knew if I didn't, nobody would believe it." Gasps spread across the gallery. Next, the younger officer took the stand. His face was pale, voice thin. "They told me to back the story, to say she fought back, but she didn't. I can't lie anymore." Miller shot up. "You little traitor, order!" The judge thundered. "One more outburst and you'll be removed." The younger officer's eyes brimmed with tears. She wasn't resisting. She was dying. And we all knew it. Narration cut like a knife. The blue wall had cracked and from its fractures spilled the truth. Truth, once silenced, now spoke louder than every lie stacked against it. The prosecutor gestured toward the defense table. "You see them squirm. You see their story collapse. Ask yourselves, if she were not Director Hayes, if she were just another black woman on the street, would we even be here today? How many cases like this never reached a courtroom?" The jury sat frozen, expressions grave. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras clicked. The public outside roared louder, chanting until their voices seeped through the courthouse walls. "Justice now! Justice now!" At last, the judge leaned forward. "The jury will deliberate." The officers were let out, hands cuffed, faces gray with dread. Miller muttered curses under his breath. The gum chewer stared at the floor, whispering, "It wasn't supposed to be like this." Hours later, the verdict came. Guilty on all counts. The gavel struck like thunder. The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Protesters cheered outside, the sound of justice rolling like a tidal wave through the city. Miller slumped in his chair, broken. The gum chewer buried his face in his hands. The first officer closed his eyes, whispering something no one could hear. Narration slid in, final. Power had been their armor. Now it was their prison. The same law they had twisted for years finally snapped back, binding them in its chains. Outside, Alana stepped to the microphones for the first time since the night of the arrest. Her voice carried calm authority but also fire. "This verdict is not just about me. It's about everyone who has ever been told stop resisting while begging for air. It's about every life crushed under the weight of power without accountability." Reporters leaned in, breathless. Alana's gaze cut through the cameras. Justice is not a gift. It is a right. And today, for once, the system remembered that. The crowd erupted in cheers. Her attorney leaned close, whispering, "You've won." Alana shook her head softly. "No, we've only begun. Winning means no one else has to stand here again. Not like this." She looked up at the chanting sea of faces, tears glinting in her eyes. Not one more. Narration closed the chapter. Reckoning does not erase the scars, but it marks the turning point, the crack in the system that can no longer be sealed. And from those cracks, a new story waits to be written. Prison gates clanged shut behind Miller. He shuffled forward, stripped of his badge, his gun, his swagger. The gum chewer followed, face pale, lips trembling. The first officer stared at the floor as the guard barked, "Keep moving." No cameras followed them here. No reporters clamored for their words. Only silence, thick, final. Narration cut in. The uniforms that once made them untouchable were gone. Now they were numbers in a system they had once believed they controlled. Their fall was not loud, but it was complete. Weeks later, Alana stood at the podium of a packed auditorium in Washington, D.C. The FBI crest gleamed behind her. Rows of journalists and citizens filled the room, waiting. She adjusted the microphone. "I was asked to speak about resilience. But resilience is not enough. I should not have needed to be resilient. None of us should." The room hushed. I was choked unconscious because I was seen as less human, less worthy, less deserving of breath. That is the truth. And if it can happen to me, the director of the FBI, then what of those with no title, no cameras, no one to witness? Her voice shook just slightly, then steadied. We cannot call it justice when accountability comes only after outrage. True justice is prevention. True justice is change. Thunderous applause broke out, echoing against marble walls. Her attorney leaned over afterward, whispering, "You've become more than Director Hayes, you're a symbol now." Alana sighed softly. Symbols can fade. Change must last. Outside the auditorium, a young black woman waited with a notebook clutched to her chest. "Director Hayes?" she asked nervously. Alana turned, smiling gently. "Yes?" The woman swallowed. I just wanted to say thank you. For surviving. For fighting. For proving they can't bury us all." Alana's throat tightened. She placed a hand on the young woman's shoulder. "No, they can't, and now you carry it forward." Tears filled the woman's eyes. "I will." Meanwhile, the world moved on. Documentaries aired. Headlines shifted. But the footage of that night never disappeared. It lived on, replayed in classrooms, debates, protests. A cautionary tale, a turning point. In the prison yard, Miller sat on a bench staring at the chain-link fence. His once commanding voice was gone, replaced by silence. The gum chewer paced restlessly. "They'll forget. Public'll move on." Miller didn't look up. "They'll never forget." The first officer muttered, "We're ghosts already." Narration sliced in. They had once believed themselves the enforcers of order. Now they were reminders of disorder, monuments to a system cracking under its own weight. Back in her office, Alana closed a folder stamped with the FBI seal. She stood, walking to the window, watching the city hum below. Her reflection in the glass carried the faint shadow of a bruise long healed. She whispered to herself, "Not one more." The attorney entered. "You ready?" Alana turned. "Always." Together they stepped into the hall, where aides and agents awaited, where decisions still needed to be made, where the work was not finished. Narration closed the story. Poetic justice is never perfect. It does not erase the pain nor restore the breath stolen, but it flips the script if only for a moment, forcing power to kneel before truth. And in that moment, a door opens. A chance to build something better, a chance to breathe freely at last.